Do I not rather rejoice when the wicked turns away from his evil way that he may live? Do I not derive any pleasure from the death of the wicked? No. Rather, I rejoice when the wicked one turns away from evil that he may live. The Beatitudes, we've been, the Sermon on the Mount. It's interesting, this past year we've been listening to the Sermon on the Mount for a while leading into Lent, and we go back to it today. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is teaching us to see through the eyes of God, to look at the world differently. Jesus is telling us in a sense that when sin entered the world, our vision became distorted. And we looked at the world differently. We looked at one another differently. We looked at ourselves differently. Look at Adam and Eve hiding in the garden, right? But Jesus teaches us to see through the eyes of God, to see and to seek mercy. And the good news is that Jesus, that God isn't asking anything of us that God isn't already willing to do for us. So Jesus talks about reconciling. He says, you've heard it said, you shall not kill. Whoever kills will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, don't even be angry with one another. And when somebody has something against you, go about fixing things up. Reconcile with one another before you turn to God. There's a little bit of hyperbole in here, but it's a hyperbole that Jesus means. He says, if you present your gift at the altar, think about this. If you present your gift at the altar and then you remember that somebody has something against you, leave your gift there, turn around, go back, be reconciled, and then come back to the altar. Well, fine. Keep in mind, Jesus was preaching in Galilee, and there was only one altar, and that was all the way in Jerusalem. 3 or 4 days walk away. So Jesus isn't talking about forgive when it's convenient, reconcile when it's convenient. Jesus says if you walked all the way to Jerusalem and then you remember somebody back at home has a grudge against you, leave your gift there. Say, okay, could you hold my goat for a couple of days? I'm going back to Jerusalem, back home and coming back. I'll see you in a week. Leave your gift there. Go all the way back, then come all the way back, and then offer your gift. What's Jesus' point? Reconciliation can sometimes be hard work. And it's not just about doing it when it's easy. But again, God doesn't ask anything of us that God isn't already willing to do. The very fact that Jesus was standing there teaching shows that God himself went the extra mile. In an essay by the late Pope Benedict, he recalls Cardinal John Henry Newman, St. John Henry Newman, who said, when God wanted to create the world, it was easy. God said, let there be light, and there was light. When God wanted to redeem the world, oh boy, that was different. That meant entering into human history. That meant taking on human flesh and getting that human flesh dirty. Reaching down into the mud and picking people up off of the gutters. When God wanted to reconcile the world, it meant dying on the cross. Creation, easy. Redemption, wow. A lot of hard work. Nobody knows better the work of reconciliation than God himself. And so God is asking us to do it. God has tremendous patience. He can work with us. He wants to get us to where we need to be. Do I derive in the death of the wicked? No, I rejoice in the conversion of the sinner. God can walk with us, be patient with us, turn us around, but God expects us to get there. You see, in the end, the Sermon on the Mount is about becoming like God. The Sermon on the Mount is about becoming saints. The Sermon on the Mount is about recognizing the amazing things that God is doing with and for us and rejoicing in that, but then recognizing what that means for our way of looking at the world and at one another. Isn't that what Lent is all about as well? And so we continue on this journey, asking the Lord to open our eyes that we might see the marvelous, merciful works of God in our midst, and then take on that merciful heart that he himself has shown us.